the Vikings officially hire Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell as their next head coach. So he has experience, right, working with Kirk Cousins from their days in Washington. Will he help get the most out of the veteran quarterback, I should say? Or are you thinking Cousins has like a new home next year? What do you think?
I think Cousins is going to stay put. All these quarterbacks are going to stay put. Where are they going to go? Who are you going to replace him with? And I don't think Cousins is as bad as we give him the rep. You look at Matt Stafford. I know everyone loves Matt Stafford this year because they won the Super Bowl, but Matt Stafford for the Detroit Lions wasn't that great. They weren't really going to the playoffs that often. And I don't think that Stafford is that much better than Cousins. Maybe that's too much of a hot take. How about this? Jimmy Garoppolo is not better than Kirk Cousins, and Jimmy Garoppolo was in a Super Bowl. He was in an NFC Championship game. Cousins is fine. People expect some ridiculous things from Cousins. He has talent. He has the weapons. Has he been inconsistent? Yes. There are plenty of quarterbacks that are inconsistent. But what he reminds me of is Joe Flacco. You look at Joe Flacco's career. He had the talent. He had the weapons. He was inconsistent. But the thing that always bailed out Joe Flacco was he always had an elite defense. So when Joe Flacco had a poor performance or Joe Flacco had a bad game, he could get bailed out and they would still win games. Cousins has never had that. If Cousins is not on fire every single time, then they lose games and people blame Cousins every single time. They never once think, hey, maybe it's that defense that's letting them down. So if you're going to improve this team, I don't think it's necessarily O'Connell dealing with Cousins as much as it is fixing some of the small holes that they have in the defense.
Yeah, he posted some pretty solid numbers under O'Connell, too, in 2017 in Washington. So north of 4,000 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 picks, a league-high 4 game-winning drives that year. That's something that Jeff Ulrich would tell you is not possible, especially in prime time now.
Well, definitely not like primetime Thursday games. Those tend to be his worst games. Hey, a little bit better on Monday nights. Again, I don't think Cousins is all the weapons are there. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent. And, hey, if Aaron Rodgers isn't in Green Bay next year, then they definitely have a shot.
Yeah, what about a bold prediction of Cousins ending up on the Broncos, where it's bolstered by the presence of former Vikings executive George Patton? I mentioned that yesterday, and ex-offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who's now the general manager there, dude. Huh? Bold prediction? Fire take?
We're getting a little crazy with these musical chairs because of this coach is related to 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. We can connect all these guys to different places. It looks like a cork board with strings going every which way. Yeah. Let's just sit tight for a little bit.
Just so you know, you are 1 degree away from Kevin Bacon because I have interviewed Kevin Bacon before. All right, congratulations to you. Hey, let's go out to Vegas here. There's another quarterback with a new head coach, and reports say Derek Carr and the Raiders are nearing an extension in the range of $40 million per season. Is he worth that, Pierce, or should Josh McDaniels just rip the Band-Aid off and look for a new guy?
He's not worth that, but the way that we value quarterback, which is wrong, right? We want to look at a quarterback and say they have a tangible value, and it should be connected to their stats and their performance. But that's just not the reality of pricing. That's not how pricing works in the real world. Things don't have an intrinsic value. Price is connected to supply and demand. And the supply of elite able quarterbacks or just able quarterbacks is low, and that pushes the price up. The demand for able quarterbacks is high. That pushes price up. So sorry for the microeconomics lesson, but these are just facts. These are laws that we can't deny. And that means David Carr or Derek Carr is going to be too expensive. You just have to deal with it. I mean, what else option do you have? There aren't any quarterbacks out there in the market. If you're going to trade, then you're going to pay a high price via a trade. The only alternative that I see that maybe the Raiders or any of these teams explore is maybe in the USFL spring season, we see some quarterback emerge, and then you sign him as a backup where he comes in and competes for a job. But outside of the USFL star being born, I don't know where these teams are going to get these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I guess the benefit of the extension too would kind of help him restructure the cap long term and build, I guess, build around him, add some pieces to it because they're in win now mode. I know Mark Davis is a huge fan of his, so he's probably not going anywhere if the owner really likes him.
I just, whether they like him or not, who's gonna replace? What are you gonna do? It's just gonna be, I would say, a lateral move. I don't see an upgrade happening. He's familiar with the system. He's familiar with the team, and he may just hurt the team by shipping him away.
Yep.
It might hurt some of the morale. Then you got to bring in a new quarterback. Then it has to convince all the players that, oh, I'm the guy. You can support me. Why even go through that?
All right, my man. I guess it's not time for the Marcus Mariota era to begin there yet. Let's go from McDaniels to McDaniel. Dolphins' new head coach, Mike McDaniel, joining friend of DraftKings here, Dan Le Batard, this week to discuss his team's offense, more specifically wide receiver Jalen Waddle, and the leap he could make in his second year under McDaniel. So listen to this.
Outside of Tua Tagovailoa, give me a name, please, just to excite the Dolphin fan base, where you are looking at the roster and you're like, oh, I can get something special
Waddle
out of that guy. Okay.
Waddle.
You're promising us. You could promise it. Waddle, if he's healthy, you're going to see a little Deebo Samuel. You're going to see someone who's used super versatile.
He's a phenomenal talent. And guess what? The best and easiest way to get yards is give it to a really talented player. The 49ers, the last 4 or 5 years, have led the league in yak. The reason is because we're addicted to getting our skill position players that are good with running the ball. And so, yes, I would start him in fantasy. I think you should see some jumps in the Miami Dolphins offense next year.
There you have it, Pearce. Quote, I would start him in fantasy. I love that dude, by the way. Could you see Waddle handling a Debo-like role? Like, does that excite you about his fantasy outlook? I know Debo's got 35 pounds on Waddle. Debo takes a beating.
That coach is a clown.
What?
That is fake news.
What are you talking about?
He did that. Congratulations, Dolphins. You've got yourself a coach who's lying to you and deceiving you right out of the gates. The reason why the San Francisco 49ers were leading the league in yak, it wasn't because their coach is a genius. It's great. Like, he's talking about how smart he is. It's because their quarterback couldn't throw the ball 5 yards downfield. That's why they're so high in yak. It's not their game plan. Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw downfield. What are we talking about? And if we want to talk about Waddle will be fine. Tua will be fine. They had the talent. They had the skill. It's not going to be game plan. It's not going to be the genius, self-proclaimed coach that's going to make Waddle this great fantasy play. It's about their offensive line. PFF grades them as the worst pass blocking unit in the league. Tua had a 2.1 second pocket time last year, the worst in football. He constantly had to run. He constantly had to pass the ball quickly because they couldn't block. And still, even though they changed their scheme so that they would adapt to a bad pass blocking unit, he was still pressured more than anyone else. Waddle can have a good season in spite of that offensive line, but his fantasy numbers are going to be limited by that offensive line. I'm tired. That guy's a clown.
What? Okay. He's going to be better than Adam Gase, right? People are saying he's this genius, but that's what people said about Adam Gase.
He's saying that about himself. That's never a good sign.
What are you talking about, man? You got to have confidence in yourself, dude.
That's arrogance. Roll that clip back. Tell me that's confidence. That's arrogance.
All right, I'm going to remember that next time you are building up this thread on Twitter about all these books you're reading, you genius. McDaniel, though, also promised to get all the greatness out of Tua. Yeah, Pearce. Well, up in Indianapolis, the Colts don't sound like a team that has a whole lot of confidence in its quarterback. The future of Carson Wentz is kind of up in the air. Should the team find an upgrade, or should they continue to build with Wentz? What do you think?
Yeah, it would be great to find an upgrade, but how are you going to find an upgrade and it's not going to cost you a king's ransom in a trade? And then you pretty much are going to hurt other parts of your future or other parts of your defense or offense to upgrade at quarterback. I don't see it happening. The free agents market is all lateral, if not downgrades. I think they're just going to have to be stuck with this guy. If you do work a trade, then that means you're finding a team that's willing to trade their quarterback. You usually don't get rid of a quarterback that you're satisfied with. If you're willing to trade or move your quarterback, it's probably not that good. If you got a car that you like, you keep that car. You don't trade it in. And the last thing you do is say, hey, I want that car that you don't want. There's problems with that car, obviously. So you stick with Wentz. This is his first season. He wasn't terrible. He missed the preseason. He's had a couple rough years, maybe a little bit of continuity. He's got enough weapons around him. If there was a better player out there and it wasn't going to hurt other parts of your team, sure. But there isn't. There's nowhere else to go. Just stick with Wentz and hope that he doesn't hurt you too much.
Yeah, he contract could also be an issue with that dude. One of the most disappointing fantasy seasons here, Pierce. That belonged to Seahawks wideout DK Metcalf. So, dude did just have a screw removed from his foot like a day or two ago. Maybe he'll be a little undervalued next season. Who knows? If Russell Wilson returns, he could be okay, right? But if he leaves and Seattle can't find like a top 15 replacement or so, Metcalf could crash. Like, how do you accurately value this guy?
Yeah, there's a lot of different variables at play. Russell Wilson might have been the problem. With Geno at quarterback, Metcalf seemed to have better games and had a better connection or repertoire for whatever reason with his quarterback. You look at Russell Wilson, one of the worst bad pass ratings in the league, bottom 10, 19.5% bad pass rate, one of the worst of his career. His on-target percentage was 76.5, which was in the bottom half of the league. Just not a good season for Russell Wilson, so maybe that'll be an upgrade. I don't know. Wilson also, his attempted air yards led the league, so he was chucking it downfield. But you look at completed air yards, and he ranked in the bottom third. So he's flinging the ball over the field, but they just weren't on target. And another theory that I'll float here about DK Metcalf, he might be spending too much time in the gym, getting bulked up too much. I know it might sound crazy to some people, but if you remember David Boston, he was going to be a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He got huge, and then his career just ended. Some people think that bulking up too much slowed him down. It cut down his agility. It cut down his arm extension. And you look at guys like Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, they never put on a pound, and they're Hall of Famers. DK Metcalf, suddenly his body's falling apart. Suddenly he's not having good seasons. I don't know. I think there's something to think about there.
I mean, the best wide receiver in the NFL this year was Hunter Renfrow, and he looks like a dude at Best Buy trying to sell you speakers, like for your car, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely. I don't know how to respond to that, but Cooper Kupp isn't really bulky either. I guess would be the response.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, Cooper Kupp looks great, and he's got the beard, little facial hair. So does Hunter Renfrow. Something to keep in mind there.